I'm your host, family law attorney Henry Gornbein. I'm also a partner in the full-service Birmingham law firm of Lippitt O'Keefe Gornbein. Each segment of Gracefully Graying deals with an issue that we face as we grow older. Today on Gracefully Graying, I'm pleased to welcome, quite frankly, one of the best and one of my favorite Oakland County Circuit Judge, who is now retired, Judge Jack McDonald. Jack, welcome to Gracefully Graying.
Thank you, Henry. Appreciate the compliment.
Well, it's deserved. I remember, in fact, you and I go back to the point where, before you were a judge, we had a couple of divorce cases where we ran opposite sides,
yes,
and
we did.
You know, we settled them.
I think even before that, I had a couple of cases with you when I was in the prosecutor's office.
It's possible.
You were doing criminal work then.
Yeah, when I was young, I was doing a
Yes,
little
when
bit
we
of
were both
everything.
young.
It's quite possible. Why don't you first of all tell our viewers a little bit about who you are and your background?
Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, came out to Michigan, attended the University of Detroit, taught school for 3 years, worked for General Tire for 4 years, and then I was going to law school at the time at night. After I graduated from law school, I joined the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office as an assistant prosecutor. Served there for 3 years and then went into private practice with a group of fellow assistant prosecutors, Marv Schwedel, Jeff Faintuck, Bill Wolfram. You remember all those people, Bob Rother. And I did
know
that.
You were all with Rother too?
Yeah, right, yes. From 1973 to 1993. And then, of course, I was appointed by Judge Engler to fill the vacancy created by Judge John O'Brien's death. And I started September of 1993 and served 17 years as an Oakland County Circuit Judge.
What are your fond remembrances of being a judge? I mean,
Fond?
It's got to be different than private practice, absolutely.
It is. The thing I liked about being a judge is in private practice, as you well know, you're an adversary all the time. And you're always fighting, not necessarily bad fights, but you're always confronting someone. And as a judge, you were more of a mediator, if you will. You didn't take sides, you just decided what you thought was fair. And there was a difference there. I enjoyed it very much. Getting out of the arena, if you will.
And why did you stop being a judge? Let's talk about that.
Well, I stopped because I was told to stop. As you know, once you reach 70 years of age, there's mandatory retirement. Now, being a judge, or when you run for judge, it's a 6-year term. So let's assume the election would have been held before I turned 70, let's say I was 69. I could have served out that last 6 years, but I turned 70 before the election. So I had to retire.
And I know years ago there's a judge who challenged it in court and lost. That was Judge David Breck.
That's right, Breck did challenge it. He did lose, yes. I don't think it's that bad of an idea. You gotta make some room for the younger people that come in.
I guess so, unless what if they changed it to 75? Do you think that would be a good or bad thing?
Well,
because think about the fact that in the federal system, it's a lifetime appointment.
It's a lifetime appointment, yes. And they sit, what do they call it? They call it it's a retirement, but you still can...
Senior status.
Senior status, I couldn't think of the term. Yeah, and you can serve anywhere in the country. I came back a number of times, as you probably know, as a visiting judge. I sat for Eddie Sosnick when Eddie had a hip replacement. I sat for Lisa Gorska when she had some medical problems. I was down in Wayne County 3 times. So really I served about 3 more years after I retired.
So you've been retired since what year?
2010.
How do you find retirement?
Very boring. I try to keep busy. I don't know that I'd want to be a full-time judge again, to be quite honest with you. It's a difficult job, and it's very hard emotionally many times. But I wouldn't mind, and I don't mind, keeping my finger in the pot, if you will. I enjoyed being a visiting judge because I knew there was a expiration date and I knew I didn't have 1,000 cases. I maybe only had 50 cases to deal with. And I enjoy mediating. I've mediated quite a few cases. I still arbitrate, not as often as I'd like to, but I find that to be enjoyable.
So if you could create a perfect retirement, what would it be, Jack?
Work about 2.5 days a week, and then spend things on playing golf, reading books, taking walks, taking little vacations, things of that nature. But you don't want to be doing nothing, Henry, and I think I mentioned that to you before we came on air. Don't fully retire.
Well, I agree with you. And I guess another thing is, even if you fully retire, if you have all the money you need, you still need a purpose.
Yes, you do.
And the purpose could be some phenomenal hobbies. It could be, going into some second career on a part-time basis.
Right.
If you just sit and do nothing, I think that's how people age more rapidly.
They do.
They don't last as long.
There's, like you said, there's no purpose in life.
Right.
I was thinking about being a greeter at Walmart.
Well, you winter in Florida, I believe.
I'm sorry.
Are you in Florida during the winter? Or?
Yeah, I went down there. I go down there for 3 months.
Okay. And
But even that, you get tired of just getting up doing nothing.
Right, but what was interesting, I was in Florida during the winter for a while this past year, and I saw all these retirees who are working as greeters in museums or docents. So,
Yes.
Or like, they're everywhere.
They are. I'm trying to get into something like that as soon as I get my sea legs, if you will. I've only been down there for 2 years now, so I don't know everybody that I should know and know where to go to. But yeah, I'm planning on doing something like that.
Your daughter, and I'm going to bring her up
Yeah.
because she decided to go for the bench.
Yes.
She filled out petitions. What do you need? Like, is it 6,000 signatures?
Yeah, close to that. Yeah.
And that was due late April of this year.
April 24th.
And something's happened that never happened before. No one is running against her.
Don't ask me why. I'm not going to question it. I know she's surprised. She's elated. So am I. It's funny too. Julie's a pretty smart young lady, and several years ago I said, Julie, you ought to run for judge. And she said, Dad, I don't want. I don't think I have enough experience. I don't do this. I don't do that. Well, then she calls me up in October of last year and said, Dad, I'm going to run for judge. I said, you are? Why made you decide to do that? She said, Judge Groner told me I should. I said, oh, your father tells you? No, but Judge Groner says it. And I think the reason why she did it, too, is she realized, after being a research attorney for him, that she knew a lot more than she thought she knew.
Well, I remember when I first started my career, I was the original law clerk for the entire Wayne County Circuit Court.
Oh, I didn't know that, were you?
And I found out that judges are human.
I'm sure.
I was helping write opinions. Some of the judges were telling me, this is the result I want, find the law to back it up. So you learn things fairly quickly.
Yes, you do, don't you? And so you realized that you knew a lot more than you thought you knew, right?
Exactly. What advice would you give to your daughter in becoming a judge?
Well, the one thing I told her was, Julie, remember this. Being an attorney is a very difficult profession. Give them some slack. Don't force people to file motions to go on vacation. She'll get a 6-week vacation. Some poor attorney, and you know this, you get 1 week, and then you have to go to the judge to beg to get a vacation. I said, let them go. Don't be hard on attorneys if they're a half hour late for court. You have 50 other cases to deal with. So if Mr. Gornbein is 15 minutes late because he has some other court to be in, give him some slack. That's fine.
That's good advice.
And I think she recognizes that.
Well, it's practical. I mean, the fact that you were in the trenches for all these years, you understand what it's like on the other side. And what's happened now is a lot of attorneys have become judges who really didn't have a lot of the practical experience. And I think it makes a difference as to the philosophy.
Well, you know what it's like. I remember one day I had to be in 3 different courts at 9 o'clock in the morning. one in Wyandotte, which is downriver, the other one in Mount Clemens, which is the other side of the world, and then before Judge Thorburn at Oakland County. Now, there's no way physically I could be in 3 different courtrooms at one time, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack.
What did you find most rewarding about being a judge?
Helping people.
That's the thing, people forget that as lawyers, we're a helping profession.
You're helping people too. Yes, you are. Yes, that's true. I'll tell you a quick story. I had to go to a doctor, I can't remember what it was, and I was going through the lobby, and I was with my wife at the time, and there was a young man mopping the floor of the lobby. And he looked at me, he said, I was waiting for the elevator, and he said, "You're Judge McDonald, aren't you?" And I thought, uh-oh, what's this all about? I said, "Yes, I am." He grabbed my hand and kissed it. I thought, what is going on? I was trying to pull it away. He said, "You know, you saved my life." He said, "They want to put me in prison, and you put me in a drug program. And now I have 2 jobs." And I thought, what a great...
I think that back then, they were just starting the idea of the drug programs and all these other things.
Right,
so,
yes.
and now they become really the norm rather than the exception.
As it should be.
Yeah.
Because as long as if they get help and they're no longer using drugs, they're not committing crimes.
It's like prison should be the last resort, not the first resort.
In many cases, yes. I remember when I first joined the prosecutor's office in 1973, there were a lot of vets returning from Vietnam. You probably remember that too. And a lot of them got on drugs in Vietnam. And they were committing larcenies for small crimes, to buy drugs, larceny of a building, small break-in entries. One case was an armed robbery. But it was all because of the drugs they got hooked on in Vietnam. And I thought, there's something unfair about that.
Well, you recognize it, and recognize it long before others, and now everyone's looking at the fact that Vietnam, or war veterans in general, they need help. And
Yes,
now
they
we
do.
have all these veterans treatment courts. So
Yes, they do.
those are very, very important aspects.
I guess the other thing I did was this. I don't think I was an easy sentencer. I don't think so. But in some cases, I guess I was. Like, for instance, I was very liberal in granting Home's Youthful Trainee status. Maybe your viewers don't know what that is, but you do. You know, where the young man gets, or young lady gets in trouble, and instead of getting, if you put them in Home's Youthful Trainee status, they don't have a record if they perform for the next 3 years. And I remember my probation officer says, "Judge, the recommendation is that they go to jail, but I know what you're going to do." And I wouldn't do it with a murderer, obviously, or an armed robber, but the point of it is, you're going to get them back. If they get in trouble, they're coming back before you. And believe it or not, I had very few people come back.
Well, it worked. Jack, we've reached our first break point.
Oh, okay.
We'll be right back with my guest, retired Judge Jack McDonald, as we continue with Gracefully Greying right after this break.
We've got garage doors, entry doors, storm doors, custom doors. Tarno knows doors.
Plus, the latest LiftMaster garage door openers and the toughest retractable screens on the market, all by the push of a button. Tarno Doors is celebrating its 50th year anniversary and is the recipient of the 2016 Subcontractor of the Year from the Home Builders Association.
Tarno knows doors. Tarno knows doors.
If you need a fingerprinting service, A1 Fingerprints is the place to go. A1 Fingerprints specializes in fingerprinting for teachers, students, law enforcement, and more. A1 makes the process so easy and simple you can be in and out in 10 minutes. A1 does walk-ins so appointments aren't necessary. A1 Fingerprints, located in Southfield on Southfield Road. Go to a1fingerprints.com for more information. That's a1fingerprints.com. It's that easy.
Advertising your business these days can be challenging. Traditional radio and TV ads are expensive and, frankly, a bit of a crapshoot. Not to mention, the audience for over-the-air material is shrinking as more and more of us demand to see and hear what we want, when we want. Advertising on new radio media is a solution. With our live streaming programs that are also available on demand, your message is always ready when your customers are ready to watch and listen, all for a fraction of what you'd likely have been paying for other ads. NewRadioMedia.com. Call Buzz Van Houten at 248-939-9999 for more information.
Maple Lane Golf Club is a 54-hole golfing treasure located in the heart of Sterling Heights. Maple Lane Golf Club offers immaculate greens, a top-flight pro shop, and inexpensive green fees. For convenience, book your tee time online at maplelanegolf.com. Come out and enjoy a great golf experience. Try our 9 and Dine special, 9 holes of golf, and enjoy food and refreshments in the Clubhouse Bistro. That's Maple Lane Golf Club in Sterling Heights. Check us out at maplelanegolf.com.
We are back with my guest, Jack McDonald, retired Oakland County Circuit Court judge. Jack, before the break we were talking about some of the positives about being on the bench.
Right.
What are some frustrations?
I thought the most frustrating docket I had, to be very honest with you, is the field that you practice in, domestic relations. It's so difficult because these parties, as much as they loved one another when they got married, they hate each other equally about and when they're separating. And I know you probably go through this every day. I don't know how you could do it, but you
There's a
have
fine
a
line
good
between
demeanor
love
to do
and
it.
hate, and I guess I look at my role as trying to, if I can save the marriage, I do. If I can't, if they can unwind in a dignified manner, bearing in mind if they have children that they want to be able to relate well and do what's best for the children, but too often people lose sight of that.
I know that, but I might compliment you because you did a good job in doing that.
Thank you.
And rather than forcing people into a corner where they have to fight back, you tried to do it in a nice
I
way.
believe court is the last resort.
Well, yeah.
And because, let's face it, I don't care how good the judge is, you don't know the people like they know themselves, and if they can work out a solution that makes sense, it's better for them, better for their children, and better for you, frankly.
Yes.
Let's talk about a case that you had, and when I called you to book the show, you had told me that you had recently been on Megyn Kelly on ABC.
I did.
Tell us about that.
Well, the case was People versus Seaman, Nancy Seaman. She was a school teacher in Farmington Hills. And on Mother's Day in 2004, she killed her husband with a hatchet. We went to trial, and she was convicted of first-degree murder.
And you were the trial judge.
I was a trial judge. 8 months later, I reversed the jury verdict. I changed it from first degree to second degree, which I've never done before in my life, and I've had at least 20 first-degree murder cases.
Was that based upon a motion that was filed, or what
There was a
happened?
motion. There was a post-trial motion, and I used that opportunity to reduce it to second degree. And let me tell you why. I had no quarrels with the jury's verdict. I never, ever upset a jury verdict, because that's what they're there for, to decide the facts. But in this particular case, Michigan law did not allow the expert to testify that the victim, in this case Mrs. Seaman, was a battered woman, or that her husband was a batterer. She testified in generalities about, some of the traits and characteristics of a battered woman. For instance, she would say, well, they have most battered women don't have self-esteem, or they're staying in the marriage because for the sake of the children, or they're staying in the marriage because of religion, or they could be professional people or non-professional people. A lot of people think that battered women in general are uneducated, unemployable.
No, they come from all walks.
But they
of
come
life.
from professional, and the jury never heard that.
Has the law changed?
No, it hasn't. And I was contacted, first of all, by a Mrs. Carol Jacobson. She's affiliated with the University of Michigan. And for the life of me, I cannot think, and I apologize to Carol if she's watching this, the name of the group. But I was first contacted by her because she read about my reversing the jury verdict. And by the way, I was reversed by the Court of Appeals.
So she's serving life in prison.
She's
without
serving
parole.
life in prison with no possibility of getting out. The other young lady who's now working on the case, her name is Kelly Lynn. And Kelly's from Grand Haven, Michigan, and she has a website called Justice Through Storytelling. And she picked up on this and is doing all kinds of things trying to help Mrs. Seaman out. So I've written letters to the governor, and I'm digressing a little bit, but Judge Bernie Friedman, federal judge, had a hearing with this Dr. Lenora Walker, the expert who would have testified and explained the actions of Nancy Seaman, why she did what she did, which the jury never heard.
How did it get into federal court?
Habeas corpus.
Okay.
And Judge Friedman had a hearing with Dr. Lenora Walker testifying for about an hour. He then granted Mrs. Seaman a new trial. He was reversed. So the appellate process is played out. If Governor Snyder doesn't pardon her, she'll spend the rest of her life in prison.
Is there
And
a
I
chance
just
of a
don't think
pardon?
it's right. Pardon me?
Is there a chance of a pardon?
Hopefully there's a possibility. You have myself pulling forth a trial judge. And like I said, it's only because the jury, I don't think, heard all the evidence that they should have heard from the expert witness. Judge Friedman, he reversed it. Judge Norm Lippett just wrote a letter to the governor saying this is an injustice. The jury should have heard from Dr. Walker. So he wrote a letter to Governor Snyder. Did I say Engler? If I did, I was mistaken. Snyder, Governor Snyder. Excuse me, Governor Snyder. And now and Barry Howard, I think, may come forward and write a letter. So there's a big movement on, a postcard campaign and things of that nature. And the Kelly Lynn's program or website is called Justice Through Storytelling.
Is that how they picked it up for Megyn Kelly, or how do they
Yes.
contact you?
Yes, they picked it up through that. And a young lady, Hannah, I can't remember her last name, she's a young lady. She's from Grand Haven, Michigan, by chance. And she must have said something to Megyn Kelly's producer, and then Megyn Kelly contacted me. A psychologist from the Department of Corrections, Nels Thompson, who also said Nancy Seaman was a battered woman, and she shouldn't be in prison.
Now, if I remember correctly, I want to digress for a minute.
Yeah.
I do remember the case.
Yeah.
And I remember, part of the premeditation was she'd bought the axe, she also bought all the
Cleaning fluids.
things to wrap it in, and the body was sitting in the garage or in a car for a couple of days.
2 days. See, these are things that the jury thought to themselves, she must have premeditated it. But think about this, Henry. There was testimony that the marriage was failing, that they were filing for divorce. She borrowed $10,000 from her father to buy a condo in downriver, I think Taylor.
So she was trying to escape.
She was trying to get out. It happened on Mother's Day. He was gone for a week before that, visiting his brother in Arizona. She had no idea where he was or whether he'd be home. So when I looked at it, I thought to myself, now here's a lady's going to divorce. Her son was going to graduate from Purdue that Friday. So what does she do? She takes him into the garage when she decides she's going to divorce him and then kills him with a hatchet. It just...
Weren't there two sons, one of whom said the father was the victim, the other saying that she was a victim of abuse?
Yes, you're right.
Did that testimony come in?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Here again, Dr. Lenora Walker could have explained that. I guess that's fairly common in these types of situations.
Well, people ally.
Yes.
One
Well, you
parent
know
or
that
the
from
other.
your divorce cases.
Yeah.
One takes the side of the father, one takes the side of the mother.
Right.
You'd never think they both lived in the same household.
No. I see that a lot.
I know you do. You do. I do.
Right.
Average jury doesn't see that. Am I correct?
So do you think there's a chance that she might be pardoned?
I sure hope so. I really do. She doesn't deserve to spend them. You know, I was also interviewed by Ashley Banfield from CNN.
Right.
After the Megyn Kelly show, she called me up. She did it by phone because I couldn't get down to the studio. And something, I know what question she asked me, but she said, well, aren't you afraid she's going to get out and kill somebody else? I said, let me tell you something. If I had young children, young children, I'd let her babysit for them. And she goes, wow.
That says it all. Now, it's interesting. One of the cases you tried was one where I was the first attorney and there were 15 after me.
Oh. Wait, which one was that? Tell me. I had a couple like that, maybe not 15, but I had a
This is the
few.
one involving an Israeli couple.
Oh.
Didn't you try that one?
No, I'll tell you what happened in that one.
I'm not going to name names.
No, I won't name
Yeah.
names. It was an Israeli couple. He was a helicopter pilot.
No, this one he was with GM.
He was, but before that he was a helicopter
Okay,
pilot.
I wasn't
And she
aware.
was a medical doctor. They both went to U of M
Right.
for postgraduate degrees.
Right.
They then moved back to Israel, and one day he came home from work and the 3 kids were gone. That's the case.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know you were the first attorney because I took over for Lisa Gorska on that case.
Exactly.
The
First attorney.
kids wouldn't see the dad. They would not see him, and I thought,
I
well, there
know.
was something wrong here. The father must be a fiend. So I had him analyzed. I had him psychologically analyzed. The psychologist came back and said, this guy's a great guy. Nothing wrong with him.
Who did the eval? Do you remember?
Oh, I can't remember. One of the ones you'd know, and I can't remember. which-
Berard? Bob Berard?
Wait, was it Bob?
Jack Haynes?
Might either one of those two, I think. And they're both very well qualified.
Yes.
And so I kept saying, look, and he'd come over from Israel, spend all that money to get her. Well, GM would bring him over, and they wouldn't see him. And I remember one day he came into court and he was crying, and I thought, there's something wrong here.
Well, that's the case where Judge Gorsuch had all the problems after the fact.
And you know what? I told Judge Gorska when she came back, I said, Judge, you're going to have a case from hell. And that was the case.
Yes.
So I would have testified on her behalf how frustrating it
Well,
was.
I had a letter written on her behalf, so. We're down to less than a minute.
Okay.
Jack, before we sign off, are there some final thoughts you'd like to share with our viewers?
That's a question I never thought about. Well, thank you for having me. Let me just put it that way. I appreciate that you having the opportunity to speak my mind. And I especially like the opportunity that you gave me to advocate for Mrs. Seaman.
Well, it's important. Clearly there was a miscarriage of justice, and a lot of people don't understand the dynamics of abuse.
Right.
And it's
But not the
something-
jury, though. I'm not blaming the jury. Believe me.
No. It's what was allowed
What was
for the
allowed
jury
in.
to see.
Yeah.
And that's
And-
the problem a lot of people don't understand, whether it's a trial before a judge or especially a trial before a jury, they get selected evidence.
That's right.
You have all these rules such as hearsay, and so it's a
Right.
whole different ballgame.
And I have to follow the rules. I can't just make up my own rules.
Right. That's why it's best to settle, especially the family.
There you are.
Jack McDonald, I want to thank you so
Thank you.
much for being my guest on
Thanks.
Gracefully Greying. I want to thank you for watching Gracefully Greying.
Hey, you guys, it's Raphael of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Guess what? The only thing we can get down here in the sewer is Geektainment Weekly on New Radio Media. Turtle Power!
Working for New Year's ties, kinda how I've been living. Feeling all a little deflated, kinda how I've been rolling. Going till my steel belt showing, never slowing to rest much. Driving around the streets until they come to detest us.
At Murray's Part City, we're known for offering customer service you won't get in any chain store or online. But don't take it from me, just listen to what our customers have to say.
The employees at Murray's are knowledgeable, courteous.
They make you feel like you're at home.
Pick up a can of Seafoam Fuel System treatment for only $6.99 or a 5-quart container of Mobil 1 motor oil for just $28.95. Murray's Part City and Pontiac Trail at Maple Road in Walled Lake.
We've got the parts you need when you need them.
Hi, I'm Art, and we're the crew at Tuffy Walled Lake. We've been in Walled Lake for 20 years, and through our knowledgeable staff and customer satisfaction, we've become quite the cornerstone in our community and to our discerning customers statewide. We know how important your vehicle is to you, and we take pride in our impeccable, affordable service. And we're trying to get you back on the road as quickly and safely as we possibly can. Please stop in and see why everybody comes from all over to get their cars serviced at 784 North Pontiac Trail in Walled Lake.